All right, well, welcome to everyone. It is just 6:30 on the dot. We will probably have a few more people joining us. Excuse me. But I will go ahead and do some introductory remarks. My name is Catherine. I'm from Chillicothe Public Library. I'm a program coordinator there. And this program tonight is a part of our NEA Big Read, which is a community reads program. The NEA Big Read is a program of the National Endowment for the Arts in partnership with Arts Midwest. And we are focusing on the book called Lab Girl. It's a memoir by Hope Jaron, and she studies plants and talks about her life. And this was one of the programs that we developed in conjunction with that story. I would like to just say a few housekeeping items here as we're getting started. If you hover over your Zoom screen, you'll be able to see the little balloon that says chat. If you click that, you can enter any comments or questions into the chat box. You can also use the Q&A tool to submit questions. We do have some automated transcripts today, so if you would like to use closed captioning, that is an option. Again, that's a tool at the bottom of your screen. It has a little closed caption box and says live caption on it. If you click the little caret there, you can choose to either show subtitle or hide subtitle. So as whatever is helpful for you. Yeah, I think that's about all the housekeeping. If you have any trouble, I am here. I can help. I can attempt to help you. Just drop a message in the chat there. All right, well, we are giving away copies of Hope Jaron's newest book called The Story of More in conjunction with most of our programs that we're having. So I'm going to launch a poll here. In order to claim your free book, you do have to be willing to come to the Chillicothe Public Library. So please indicate on the poll whether or not you would like to enter this Story of More book giveaway. And I'll just give it a few moments here so everyone can respond. Hello to Gail, who's joined us, and to my mother. Hi, Mom. Anita, do you want to enter too? I don't know if you can, but do you see the poll?
Yeah, it said panel. You cannot.
Oh, enter. I didn't mean to set it up that way. Well, I can add your name.
That's okay.
I can add your name.
That's okay.
Okay.
We can get it from the library. I did read the book.
Great.
I did.
All right. So that is that. I'm going to also just drop a few links here right before we get started with the main Q&A. The first link is the website for the NEA Big Read programming on the Chillicothe Public Library website. The second link I'm about to share is the video that Anita put together. It's an introduction to this topic, as well as a demo as to how to put together a very, very beautiful salad. I mean, the first 5 seconds of this video show the most beautiful pile of root vegetables you've ever seen. And yes, it's just worth it to see that. But that, if you've missed it or want to revisit it, there's that link. And finally, this is the Broad Branch Farm website, and that is the farm that Anita is on here. And I guess we can go ahead from there. Live from Broad Branch Farm, here is Anita Popel.
Hello, everybody. I hope everybody can hear me okay. Yeah, we're live from Broad Branch Farm. I can look out my window and see my hoop houses and my garden from my house. We're located just not even 10 minutes from the Chillicothe Public Library, which is a wonderful thing. But we're just northwest of Chillicothe. We live on about 52 acres of, most of it is pasture for our livestock. And then we also have under an acre under production for our vegetables. And we also throw in there some fresh herbs and flowers. And we just finished planting today 6 more fruit trees, whether that's for just our eating or maybe future sales, we're not really sure. But what I'm realizing as the owner of Broad Branch Farm and as the parent of 3 wonderful girls, Lucy, Susanna, and Laura, they all have their own interests with this farm. They're very enthusiastic. Lucy at 19 is our orchard girl and also our vegetable girl. Susanna's the flower girl, and Laura's the herb girl. My husband Brian is also very much participating in the farm. He's the livestock guy, and he's heads up the grass-fed beef and the pastured chicken and pigs operation. So it's very, very busy place. We operate, we have our pastures are certified organic. The rest of our enterprises are not certified. And if you need to know why, I can explain why, but we operate everything organically with an emphasis on pasture with our livestock. So we produce food for our community for sale. And we also, of course, feed ourselves very, very well from all the food we produce on this farm. So if anybody, if we can open it up to questions about anything to do with the farm or eating, cooking, whatever you'd like.
Can I just ask really quick, has everyone had a chance to see the demo video that Anita produced earlier this month or last month? If you want to just say in the chat, or if you want to use the raise hand tool, and that way we can kind of see where we're starting from as far as, okay. Well, it looks like we at least have a couple people who have seen the video. For those who have not, Anita, would you like to just kind of touch on a few basic points that you made there, in addition to, I mean, you don't have to go through the recipe for the salad. People can watch that again for that, but just some of the points that you made there, and that might remind folks of some of the questions that they had.
Sure. So in the video, we concentrate on a dish that would be considered low carbon eating, which low carbon eating, if you look it up, it's going to talk about eating, we like to say eating low on the food chain, eating fruits and vegetables, and especially things that we produce ourselves. The video, we harvested fresh salad greens that we have growing here. We used root vegetables that we grew last fall. We stored over the winter, and we were still eating them in March. We used those as part of the dish, and we also used our pastured eggs as a protein source on our salad. So the idea is that we focused on the vegetables, which are a very low carbon way of eating. And we obviously incorporated food that we grew ourselves. And that's another way that you can have an impact. You know, the best way to have a low carbon diet is to walk out your door and harvest something for something to eat. So there's literally no transportation involved except you're walking. So that's a really wonderful thing. We did not touch a lot on meat in our video. Our farm does produce beef, pork, and chicken, this is a topic that, you know, people might want to say that, you know, not to eat meat, but I think my take on it is that we're probably not going to convince people not to eat meat, but really what we ought to think about is how the meat is raised, and having perennial pastures where the animals graze is a huge step forward from, say, confinement type livestock raising, industrial type meat. That is not a low carbon way of eating. And also making your plate look very green and lots of vegetables and lots of fruits, and making the meat a smaller portion of your meals is an excellent way to reduce your carbon footprint when you're eating. So I'm not advocating for no meat. I'm saying that make good, and there's farms like ours. There's lots of farms who are doing meat in the Peoria area, and so you know you have choices. It doesn't have to come from the grocery store.
All right, if anyone has questions or comments, feel free to drop that in the chat or the Q&A. While that's happening, we often hear of a low carb diet, but what we're talking about today is a low carbon diet. And maybe we can just kind of define that. I don't know that we've talked about that today, but what does it mean to have a low carbon diet or a low carbon footprint?
Well, when Catherine, when you presented this to us, I mean, I went and looked up low carbon diet, and a low carbon diet is less packaged food, reducing your consumption or eliminating your consumption of industrial raised meat, trying to source your food closer to home to reduce the fossil fuels. One thing that I really didn't see was, I mean, grow it yourself. I mean, if we could get people involved, encouraged in growing just a little bit of food for themselves, I think that's would be a really great step forward. So yeah, things that you can start to do, fruits and vegetables, whole foods, less packaged foods that not only good for you, but definitely good for the planet. And of course, eating organically, you know, you instantly do not have any of the pesticides that are applied, and those are heavily fossil fuel dependent inputs. So choosing organic is definitely a good choice. There's a question here about, did you plant any peach trees? And we did not. We have planted peach trees. And we didn't plant peach trees today. Today we planted 4 pear trees and 2 black Oxford apple trees. But Lucy, the orchard girl, tells me we do have peach trees coming. So, but they haven't arrived yet.
And if you happen to be watching on Facebook, feel free to drop questions in the comment section there.
Yeah. You know, anybody out there growing their own food? Or any other, what else are you doing to try to live a low carbon, eat a low carbon diet?
Gail asks, could you describe the apple variety and why you chose it?
Yeah, the Black Oxford is a apple that matures in late fall. It's quite hard. It is a good storage apple. So we definitely, we want some fruit that we can store over the winter. We have a variety that we love so very much called Gold Rush. And we do have Gold Rush planted here. And that apple can be stored, harvest in late fall, November, and store well into March without a problem. And Black Oxford will be able to do that as well. We went to the Madison Farmers Market and spoke to a man there and tried the Black Oxford and loved it. It reminded us of another variety we grow called an Arkansas Black. And an Arkansas Black apple is another apple that when you hold it and you try to press on the skin, it's just quite hard. And that's another excellent storage apple. But yeah, we have I can't tell you all the varieties we have on the apples, but we're trying to do lots of different ones because you never know what's going to work out. And we hope to have plenty of apples to keep us supplied at some point.
Forgot to unmute myself. We do have a couple more questions. Bev asks, did you have a time in your life when you were not eating or growing a low carbon diet? And if so, what inspired the change?
Well, I grew up on a non-low carbon diet. It was a heavily meat infused diet. And that's how I grew up on a farm in Stark County. My mom had a big garden, but meat was definitely very heavy part of that. And even though some of it was raised by ourselves, but certainly not how we're doing it now, where we buy as little from the store as possible. And what inspired the change? At some point, I found the passion for growing food, and it's just suits me very, very well. And it suits Brian. And so now you've got two people growing food, and then we had 3 children, and it seems to suit them as well. So we have 5 people that are interested in not only growing the food, but eating this way also. And I know that that's not the way that it is in every family, but we are truly lucky to have all of us on the same page, and that everything a lot easier. Our kids love every vegetable, probably because they grew up with the best vegetables you could possibly eat. So they've grown up being tomato lovers, and all the things that I hear that people don't like, our children love it. So I think the passion for growing food just naturally flowed into this. We didn't even know it was a low carbon diet. All we know is that we want to eat as close to the source as possible. We know that it tastes better. We know that it makes us feel good. Eating this way is just, we can't eat any other way. We don't eat fast food. It's not a part of our diet ever, and nobody in the house craves it. So what we crave are salads, when the salad greens are booming, and in June we'll go and pick strawberries and blueberries, and these are the things that we crave, and we pick a lot of them and we freeze them so that we can use them over the winter. Like, we're always thinking about what we can do to preserve and hold some of this goodness for the months that are coming.
Pat had a comment, and I think this was in response to your question as to what people are doing to help reduce their food carbon footprint. But she says, I think she says that they're doing all of the things that you mentioned to reduce their carbon footprint.
Great.
So way to go, Pat.
Yeah. And I wanted to say that,
yeah.
Catherine, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to say that, like, we have people that call us up and they want to radically change their diet. They want to buy all these things from us. They're going to throw everything out of the fridge and they're going to start fresh. And when I get a call like that, I get a little bit concerned that it's probably not going to be a success. What we really need to think about are making baby steps. You know, you don't have to eat everything organic. You don't have to give up a hamburger now and then from a restaurant. What we really need to do is be thoughtful about how we live our lives and how we eat our food, and try to do a little bit, and don't feel bad if you're not 100%. I mean, we still drive gas powered vehicles, you know, that's, we do not own electric vehicles. You know, there's things that we're doing that are not low carbon, but we're trying to make an impact on the things that we're passionate about, that comes easy to us. And, you know, that's how you should look at it. Don't waste your time feeling guilty. Figure out what it is that works for you and make that change. And don't sweat that you haven't done everything that says this is how you live a low carbon lifestyle or eat a low carbon diet. It's taken us years to get to this point. We didn't just decide to have this farm and produce all this food. You know, it started out with me growing a few herbs, then doing a few salad greens. This has been 25 years in the making. So, you know, this is, it takes a long time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, that seems to be a theme actually in across a few programs that we've had this spring that wouldn't on the surface necessarily look like they had anything to do with each other. So we had a writing workshop and a program about nurturing mental wellness, and then this one, and all of them brought up the point that if you want to make a change or build up a habit or reach a goal, to start with something that's small and manageable and measurable, that you're not going to feel totally overwhelmed if you and guilty if you can't do it. Yeah. So like, what is something maybe that you like to eat and that you could maybe get from closer than you do right now?
Absolutely.
So taking those doable steps, I think that's a really good point.
Yeah. And, you know, the Peoria Farmers Market, on the waterfront is, in the riverfront is a beautiful market, and there's lots and lots of food. You don't have to go every week. Maybe you try to go once a month, just, you know, try to make a small change. And maybe there's a food, yeah, that you're quite, you know, something that you really like, and maybe you buy extra from the farmer and you freeze it. You know, you don't have to can. You can slice up peppers and put them in a container and freeze them. You know, something as simple as that. It doesn't have to be an all-out canning extraordinary thing. It can be something as simple as throwing berries in a container and putting them in your freezer.
Donna, Sous Chef, is that the organization that's down in the warehouse district? That, I'm just trying to find a link to it.
Sous Chef, although we haven't been there, I know that they are stocking local food.
Mm-hmm. Here is a link to their Facebook page. And just quickly, their information says that they're a specialty grocery store featuring local farmers and vendors, fresh veggies, meat, and baked goods, and prepared meals. You can shop seasonally and local with them. So there's another tip if you're looking.
Yes, yes. Yeah, we haven't visited Sous Chef, and we don't provide food to Sous Chef, but we hear great things about them.
Anyone else, either on Zoom or on Facebook? If you have a comment or a question, feel free to chime right in.
Is anybody gardening yet?
We are.
I know Catherine is. It was nearly 80 degrees today, and it's going to be 80 tomorrow. I know we're not done with cold weather, but yeah, it's gardening season is most definitely here.
Kale is gardening. So sometimes I've had less than ideal luck with my spinach, but this year it seems to be germinating quite well. So I'm excited about that. Is there one or two crops that you might suggest that are relatively easy to grow in one's own backyard and kind of pack a lot of bang for their buck, so to speak?
Sure. Um, well, definitely tomatoes. You know, that's the go-to vegetable for, anybody can find room for a tomato. I'm always amazed when someone says that I don't have any room, and I don't believe them because there's always room for a tomato. And if you're growing tomatoes, one of the things that you might want to look for is that there's something called determinate or indeterminate varieties. A determinate variety will grow, produce fruit all in one setting for the most part, and then it doesn't produce any more fruit. So we don't grow a lot of those. We want to grow indeterminate tomatoes, and those grow and make flowers, set fruit, and keep doing that all up until the cold kills the plant. So if you decide to grow tomatoes and you haven't done it before and you want to try, definitely go for the indeterminates so you have a very long season. The other things that I think are easy to grow and a good bang for your buck are something like kale. Kale's an excellent green, and it continues to produce all season, whether it's early spring or summer. You can continue to pull leaves off of the kale, and you can eat it in salads. You can make kale chips. You can wilt it in soup. I mean, it's good throughout the season in all kinds of dishes. That's probably one of the easier greens to grow. Tomatoes, people love cucumbers. Cucumbers can be easy if the bugs don't find you. So if you're growing for the first time, you probably won't have any insect problems. And cucumbers are such a luxury to grow over the summer because we were just lamenting how you can't preserve a fresh cucumber and how much we miss them over. I mean, you can do pickles, but I'm talking a fresh cucumber. You really can't do that. So yeah, I mean, those are a couple of examples. I mean, everybody wants to grow carrots. Carrots can be a little bit of a challenge. They take special germination conditions and everything. So maybe I would steer away from carrots. I don't know, Catherine, what would you suggest? Like, what are your easy ones in the garden?
Well, kale for sure. And that's kind of fun because we have some shade in our yard. And that's something that'll thrive in sun or part sun. At least it does in our yard, it seems to. So
yeah,
whereas tomatoes, sometimes they have a little challenge ripening up when there's not the full amount of recommended sun. But yeah, kale will keep going and going and going and going. And I still have some from last year that's starting to come back from the base of the plant. So sometimes you get a couple years
when
out
they right, it just wants to grow. Kale, you can have a stubby little stem that looks like there's nothing happening, and it warms up and you've got all these little sprouts coming up from the stem. So if you're interested in something spicy, we used to grow mustard greens. We always used to say, if times are tough, grow mustard greens, because that's another green that is super nutritious for you. It is spicy though. Eating it raw, like it's going to be spicy, but you cook it and then that takes the spice away. So mustard greens are something that just keep growing, and they're beautiful and abundant. But we don't get a lot of requests for mustard greens, but if you're interested in that, it's a good one.
While we're on this topic, I'm just going to drop the link to our seed library into the chat here. If you are getting your garden started or would like to try growing one or two things without having to put out the bucks for a packet of seed, you can come to the library and check out some seed. We have just about, I mean, I can't say we have just about everything because that would be way too much, but we do have multiple varieties of most popular vegetables. So come on and check it out if you like. Yeah. Oh, suggestions for something that would be best for a pot on the deck. I guess something that you can grow in. Well,
Herbs. Okay. Things like basil are wonderful. They do have varieties of tomatoes. I mean, depending on how big your pot is, there are some, they call them patio tomatoes that you can grow on your deck. But definitely fresh herbs, things like basil would be wonderful. Root crops are not probably going to be, you just can't grow that many. And, you know, once you pull a beet, you don't have any more, but something like a basil plant, you can continually harvest and get a longer season of harvesting that plant. Greens would be very good. You could grow lettuces, would be nice. When you plant lettuce, my tip is to not just sprinkle the seed in, because you'll end up with so many plants. If you could start your seed, just one or two seeds in a small pot, and then transplant them to your bigger pot, that would be better. Lettuce can't grow with many plants in a very small area. You really want to have them some space, so that think about the lettuce plant. If it feels crowded and it feels like its resources are limited, then lettuce will do what's called bolting, and that's when it goes to seed. And the trick with greens is you don't want it to do that, because once it does that, the leaves become bitter. When you grow greens, make sure that they're spaced out correctly, and don't let them grow with many plants in a very small area. So
while we're speaking of herbs, that makes me think of, I mean, I think that that's probably one of the things that it's quite easy to have an impact on your carbon footprint, because if you go to the grocery store, you know, maybe you want a bit of sage or something, and it seems to always come in a plastic container, you know, a little clamshell, and who knows where it was grown and how long it took to get there and all the refrigeration it took. Not to mention all the petroleum products that go into making the plastic for it, you know. So growing your own herbs, that seems to be, I mean, maybe you don't eat the volume of them that you do tomatoes or kale or something like that, but if you think of every time you use herbs as not using another one of those plastic clamshells, that seems like a pretty nice effect there.
yeah. And there's no comparison. There's no comparison between, say, the parsley that is growing in our hoop house right now that is overwintered, the sweetest, most delicious, like you can just pluck off the parsley and just eat it like lettuce. It's so delicious. There's no way that the parsley at the store could ever achieve that level of flavor. And one of the really wonderful things about growing food yourselves is that you get to see the plant at all stages, and you get to see plants do things that you would never see in the grocery store. So the basil flowers, you can harvest the flowers and eat those. you get to see things happen on plants that are really wonderful and wild and beautiful. And most of it is, and that it not only tastes good, it's just so fun to watch. We watched overwintered Napa cabbage is now bolting in our hoop house, and it's producing. Napa cabbage is part of the cabbage family, same family as broccoli. Broccoli has this wonderful larger head that you can eat, but on these other plants that are in the brassicas, they're forming very similar flower heads. And our Napa cabbage has these beautiful little flower buds that look like mini broccolis. You'd never see that in the store, and they're delicious. And then they actually open up as flowers you can eat. And it's my theory that, well, it's true. The plant is putting all of its energy into producing that seed. And so if you're eating those seed buds, that has to be the best thing you could eat. You're getting that plant's energy, and that has to be a really, really good thing. And it tastes good too.
Pat mentioned earlier that some of her favorites are zucchini, beets, broccoli, and melons.
Yes. So we don't grow a lot of melons here, but we love melons too. And we have a friend who lives on Route 26, Doug Day, who used to sell at the farmers markets in Peoria, and he grows melons because he's on the sandy ground that's right along the river. And so Doug and his partner Leslie have the ideal conditions to grow beautiful melons. So that's just an example of something that we don't grow ourselves, but within a half-hour drive, we have somebody who is doing it, and they're doing it organically, and we'll get 10 melons and we will put them in our cooler, and that's what we'll eat for a month or more as our fruit. So that's something that our family loves so much, is with the seasons.
Anyone else have any questions or comments to chime in? Well, if not, Anita, do you have any final words that you'd like to share with us tonight?
I just saw the comment about, yeah.
Cantaloupe is great to freeze and use in smoothies. Says Pat.
Yes, we've done that, and frozen cantaloupe and good organic whole milk yogurt is so delicious as well. Cantaloupe is so quenching in the summertime. Good cold cantaloupe, and there's an example of something that is so easy to freeze. Slice it, chunk it, and put it in your container and freeze them. And actually, we're just finishing up our beautiful Coneflower Farm from up by Tiscowa, finishing up their beautiful strawberries in some smoothies lately. So that's really, really fun. Well, my thing obviously is the way that we try to live a low carbon lifestyle is obviously focused so much on food and trying to grow what we can here, grow without chemical inputs, fossil fuel inputs, using our hands to do most of the work, very limited tractor work. We do have a tractor, but we just planted, I think, 800 little plants today for a garden. That was cabbage and kohlrabi and regular cabbage and Napa cabbage, and it was all done by hand, and we don't use any equipment to do anything like that. But we do it on a small, bigger scale. We're certainly not that big, but I guess I encourage everyone to, you know, dabble in a little bit of growing, and maybe you don't think you have a green thumb, but you know, you might surprise yourself at how well you could possibly do. So yeah, I definitely encourage. Gardening is something that can be quite enjoyable and relaxing, and tastes so good.
Thank you so much for your thoughts and insights. I'm going to go ahead and do our drawing for the free book. Sorry, I meant to do this earlier. Hang tight, everyone. All right. Got my little random name picker up here. And the winner of our free copy of The Story of More by Hope Darren, which also includes some ideas for lowering your carbon footprint, is Sharon Howard. Congratulations, Sharon. And you can come to the library to pick up your free copy. Oops. Closing too many things here. Yeah, I think that is about all we have for tonight then. Thanks so much, Anita, again for your time and your thoughts and all the work that you and your family do for bringing this good food to our community.
Thank you, Catherine, for everything you do for the Chillicothe Public Library. You are amazing. Our family loves you and all that you do to bring these great programs to the library. We feel so fortunate that you're there.
Well, it's definitely a pleasure, and we certainly couldn't do it without our partners like you. When you all leave the meeting tonight, you will be prompted to complete a brief survey, and if you wouldn't mind doing that, we would appreciate it very much. It helps us to, oops, we got a few things in the Q&A. Do you mind sticking around just a few more minutes, Anita? We do have a few questions.
No, I'm happy to. No.
Okay.
No problem.
All right. Gail asked, can you recommend some good cookbooks for folks starting to eat more veggies?
An author, Julia Turshen, T as in Tom, Urshen. We've gotten a couple of her cookbooks, and she's great. She eats the way we eat, which is eat something one night and then turn it into something else the next day. Like, that's something we didn't even touch on, that I read about, is food waste. Very little food waste in our family here. We eat everything, but sometimes we make a chicken one night and then it gets turned into soup the next day or something like that. So Julia Turshen is a great resource. Oh, I don't know the name, Gail. Lucy is into ferment vegetables. I don't know if you even consider that, which is, combining raw vegetables with salt and doing a fermentation on that. And I actually don't know the author, but I would certainly be able to provide that information to you if you were interested in making, say, your own beet kraut sometime. So, of course, the internet, there's the girls love Smitten Kitchen. That is their favorite food blog. That is where they go when they want to make a recipe. So it's Smitten Kitchen, and she has hundreds of recipes, and she cooks like we do. She uses real ingredients, and we really like her.
All right, and the other question, not there, is Bev asks about how much land is needed to provide enough fresh produce or enough fresh food to support a family of 4 that eats mainly a plant-based diet.
Oh, not much. I don't know what your backyard looks like. I mean, there's probably resources online that you could type that question in and somebody has figured that out. Like how many square feet you need to so many people, and they probably even lay it out to how many plants of this and that. I don't have that exact number. I mean, is it a 100 by 20 feet garden? I mean, that's a big garden. I'm afraid I can't say for sure. But that's a good question. And somebody has figured that out. And somebody has a garden plan that will tell you exactly what to do to achieve that. But it's not as much space as you think. We grow on 1/6 of an acre, and we're able to support 60 vegetable boxes each week for our CSA. Over the summer, we feed ourselves and have extra. It's incredible how much food you can grow in a small space. And I have a feeling, Catherine, that you guys are utilizing the area that you have intensively. If you have very high soil fertility, then you can grow very intensively with your vegetables and get lots of food out of a smaller space.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry to those folks whose questions I did not see till the very end, but I'm glad we caught them. And I am not seeing any more now. So thanks for your patience. Yeah, I think we can go ahead and wrap it up. Unless you have any final thoughts again. final thoughts.
No, I don't. Just, I don't know, local food is great. So seek it out and make it a part of your lives.
All right, thank you. Yeah, and a fun place to start might be looking at that video and checking out that salad recipe. It just is gorgeous and it sounds so delicious. I'm so excited to try it. So, well, thanks so much, Anita. Thanks everyone for tuning in tonight and hope to see you around. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Catherine.